Okay, hello again, geometry students. This time we're going to look at question number 8, and the directions on this question are a little different than anything you've seen before, and so that's why I'm working it out for you here. It says, a regular polygon is inscribed in each circle below. Find the area of the circle, okay? So we're used to seeing these regular polygons, and we know how to find the area of those. That's like what we did on number 7. But what they asked us to find is the area of the circle. So if you remember from when you found the area of a circle before, the area of a circle is pi r squared. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what that r, that radius is for this circle. And so we know the radius of a circle goes from the center of the circle to any point along the edge of the circle, so I could pick any point here. However, the point that's going to be most useful for me is also where the corner of the triangle meets up. So I'm going to choose that to be the radius that I'm going to try to find. You, of course, could have chosen either of the other two points where the triangle and the circle meet up, but since I've already labeled the first one, we're going to use that one. So in order to find that, now let's really just focus on this triangle, okay, ignoring the circle for a minute. So that triangle, we know we've got this 4 yards down here at the bottom. So let's create a right triangle just like we did on all the other problems. And so now that I'm creating this right triangle, instead of using 4 yards for the whole equilateral triangle, I want to cut that in half and use 2 yards for just the length of that right triangle. And so what I'm trying to find is this r over here on that diagonal side. That's of course of the right triangle right here. And so to do that, I need to take my 360 and divide it by the 3 sides of the triangle. That gives me 120 degrees. And y'all, this is just like what we did on the other area problems, okay? So then of course we take that 120 and divide it by 2, and we get 60 degrees. So that's what goes near the center. And so, as always, I'm going to redraw this so I have more space. I'm looking for the r, the hypotenuse, and that's really what makes these problems slightly different than what we've done before. Okay, so I'm still going to use trig to find this. The 2 is my opposite. The r is my hypotenuse. So instead of using tangent like we've done a lot, we're going to use sine, because sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this is going to be sine of 60 equals 2 over r. And the first thing we need to do is get the r out of the denominator. So those cancel. Now we have r sine of 60 equals 2. And I just need to divide by the sine of 60. So r equals 2 divided by sine of 60. And we, of course, put that in our calculator. And that gives us 2.309. Oh, that's getting really off. Hang on. 3094010077. Now, because this was a 60-degree angle, if you like special right triangles better, you could have used special rights. This particular example, since they would have given you the long leg over here, that 2 yards would be your long leg, is a little complicated. It's not the easiest 30, 60, 90 triangle to do. So that's why I just used trig, and I think a lot of you prefer just to use trig all the time. So there's our r, that 2.309 number. And now we just need to find, remember, they asked us to find the area of the circle. So here we're going to plug in area equals pi times your r, which is that 2.309401 number, squared. And once again, if you already have that answer left in your calculator, just hit the squared button and then times, and you always want to use the actual pi button on your calculator. Mine is located if I hit, and I'm using a TI-84. So if I hit second and then the little up arrow, which is just above the divided by symbol, if you have a different calculator, I'm not sure off the top of my head where it would be, but just search for it on your calculator buttons or ask somebody around you and they might be able to show you. So now that I've got that typed in my calculator, write down my area, and we're going to round to 3 decimal places, 16.755. They did give us units, so this would be yards squared. Okay. And so remember, what's different about this problem is that we were finding the area of the circle. Okay. So solving for that radius, that r, is what allows us to find the area of the circle, and that's why we used this area of a circle formula as opposed to the 1/2 AP formula. Okay. All right, of course, if you need to review that again, it is something new, then feel free to rewind this video back and watch it again. And then once you think you've got it, try number 9 on your own, following very similar steps, and see if you can find the area of the circle for number 9. Okay, so we're going to go on to number 14. And you'll notice number 14 is not a right triangle. So here's where we're going to use either LOS or LOC. That's the law of sines or the law of cosines. The first thing that we want to do is try to figure out which of those two we're going to use. And you'll remember the trick that I told you was to look and see if you have an angle and a side across from each other that match together. So the reason I've zoomed out is to show you on number 12. You've got that 30 yards and that 59, those go together. And they asked you to find the QR over here, and it matches with that 29. So here, because you have these things that match together, this would be LOS, law of sines, which starts out like sine of A over A equals sine of B over B. Okay? If you do not have those pieces that match together, or you can't like solve for a missing angle and have the pieces that match together, then that tells you that you're going to use law of cosines. So on this problem, we don't have any angles, so this means we are definitely going to use law of cosines. Okay? They asked us to find the measure of angle C, and so we're going to use this law of cosines formula that starts with C squared. Okay? As a reminder, one of these formulas is going to be on your test. I believe it's the one that starts with C squared. It will be given to you. You need to know how to recreate the formula for any other variable like A squared or B squared or X squared. So it always starts out with whichever side you're trying to find or whichever angle you're trying to find. C squared equals, and then you square the other two sides and add them together. So A squared plus B squared. Then it's minus 2. And you use those two sides that we just listed, A and B, and then it's going to be cosine of C, whichever angle or side that you're asked to find. And of course, these always take up a lot of space, so I'm going to move this down here so I have a little more space to work with. Okay, so now I just want to plug into that formula. Of course, our C is the one that's across from angle C, side C. So that'd be 9. So I'm going to plug in 9 squared equals, our A squared is 14, so 14 squared plus B squared is 6 squared minus 2 times, then we use that 14 and 6, cosine of, angle C is what we're trying to find. So this is our variable right here that we want to solve for. So remember, anytime you're trying to solve for this angle over here, we have to be really careful what we type in the calculator. Some people want to type all of this right here into the calculator at the same time. But remember, we can't do that because the 2 times 14 times 6, that's all attached to that cosine of C. So we've got to kind of leave that together. We can move around the other parts, but we can't really mess with that part yet. So 9 squared would give us 81. I'm going to go ahead and add together the 14 squared and the 6 squared. That gives us 232 minus, and I will go ahead and multiply out the 2 times 14 times 6, and that gives us 168. It's still got that cosine of c attached to it. So if we're trying to solve for this variable c, the next thing I want to do is subtract the 232 over to the left side. So we've got 81 minus 232. That would be negative 151 equals negative 168 cosine of c. Also make sure you don't forget that negative that was in front of the 168. Make sure you bring it down and include it with your cosine of c. So next thing we want to do is divide by negative 168. So negative 151 divided by negative 168 will give us a positive 0.898895. I could keep going if I want to, but I'll leave it at that. Cosine of c. And then remember, to get rid of that cosine, we have to do cosine to the negative first on each side. And so now we'll put that in our calculator. We'll hit second cosine. And then remember, most of you can hit second and then that negative symbol, and it'll pop that answer back into your calculator, that 0.8988 number. And so when I do that inverse cosine of c, I get 20, and it's going to round to 26 degrees because we are rounding to the nearest whole degree. So it was 25.9979, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to go to the nearest degree, which would give us 26 degrees. So these are the law of cosines problems that are a little longer and trickier to solve. You've got another one very similar to it over here on number 15. And so if you feel good about this one, then go over and try number 15 and see if you understand it, and make sure you get the correct answer. Answer key for the study guide is available on Schoology. Just make sure that you're using it to check your work, because of course copied work will not be given credit. Okay, so that's all for this video. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and then you can catch me on the next video for the last two problems.